Alright. So, we got both of Toa's endings. And that kind of concludes the story. But let's explore Shiki's route this time, Let's go back and explore her route. Alright, so starting from here, you're supposed to choose a different decision this time, We're going to have to get some Shiki points, I feel like. So, I think this is the first time we meet her. And I think we either mention Mikami Itaha, that's what we did the first time, or we can just say, there's someone that looks similar to her. So, a person that looks similar to you. Do you happen to have a relative who looks extremely similar to you? Is this how city people flirt? Is this how they flirt? Also, text speed. Text speed got reset, it seems like, when I closed the game and came back. Is this how city people flirt? Relatives, particularly close blood relatives, most of them look similar in one way or another. If so, I don't particularly mind, although we've only just met, I'm flattered. Next word she murmured quietly. I wonder if you met my sister. Unlikely. Taking a thinking pose, she nimbly twirled around on the even ground and faced me with a shake of her head, as if coming to a conclusion. She loves to do that, by the way. She likes to spin. Spin. You're very pretty, detective. That's what she said last time. I don't know what she mean by that. She's visually impaired is all I'm saying. So I don't know how she does that. Either she can see my soul, or, she means like pretty like a different way, not like visually, but like maybe she has a pretty voice. I don't know. I do notice that the word pretty is often used in this visual novel, like 100 million times. Anyway, but yeah, this is, I assume, the same dialogue. Okay, Contrebo. Okay, now we're gonna skip. Last time I chose to leave now. Let's just linger this time, just to explore the other decisions. Let's see. Given that I had taken a walk here already, I decided to linger for a few minutes more. I walked past Mikami Itaha's tombstone and took a look at those of others from the Mikami family, taking note of the dates inscribed on the stones. Yes, okay, so this is when we visit the cemetery, wondering about Mikami Itaha, because she technically is dead according to the villagers, even though, initially we thought she was just simply missing. But yeah, the Mikami tombstones, there is only one buried per generation. Perhaps the Mikami family used a criteria to decide who received their own plots. For example, only the eldest could have a special grave. Perhaps they simply had a thin bloodline, the name passed down painstakingly by each singular heir. Oh, there she is. She got shrunk down and put in the background. I passed through the Mikami section and spotted a familiar figure from afar. The priestess. Although a townsperson had called her that, the title didn't seem fitting. As she was in the distance, I didn't bother to call out to her. To shout across the cemetery, now I wouldn't be as gauche to do that. I don't know how to pronounce that. Gauche? Gosh? Gauche? Well, I had no time with the dead today. I departed. Alright. Well, okay, we just see her in the distance. That's all that happens, really. Whee! Alright. And then we kind of see Toa, I think, for the first time. We can comment on her golden eyes or another of that face. So you can say, oh, it looks similar to her as well. Was she yet another person of that same face? Mikami Itaha, Mikami Itaha, Mikami Itaha. I couldn't say if there was one, two, or three of this woman whom Shoko yearned for. I guess it is implied that Shoko, was maybe in a relationship with Mikami Itaha in the first place. Now there's three of them, Considering the age and relative youth of the girl at the front, I conjectured the number should be a question of 2 or 3. At the front, she cut and finished. Alright. And that's a little ritual that they did to cut off strings. Skip. We can sneak in, Last time we did, we died. We can just leave it be this time, maybe. However, I couldn't get too carried away. Taking into consideration where I was, I decided to walk away from the door and return to gathering. Right. Glad you can make it. I twitched. I didn't have a sense of reference with those strings. Is this new? Oh, this is technically new. Okay. How has your evening been? If I remember correctly, where we met earlier, you were on the path to the cemetery. Did you visit? I visited in place of a friend. I see. Did you notice the Mikami section? Forgive me if I go on for too long, but there's an interesting history of the Mikami family and the shrine. Over a century ago, worship had been in great decline in the region. Thanks to the cooperation between the Mikami family and the original shrine head family, energy was re-injected into the shrine. One part was certainly financial, but the other was spiritual. The Mikami bloodline is said to house an essence of the gods. That is why members are buried intact without cremation. Over time, the two families became one, and the same under the Mikami name. The kanji has changed, but that's another story altogether. Is the priestess also from the Mikami family? Yes, she is. The youngest generation. The Zoomer generation. No, actually, I don't know what... I can't remember. I think the game did mention, like, what setting or what time this takes place. Which technically might not be Zoomer, but anyway. I would love if young people like you would take interest in the shrine. If you have a chance, you could talk with the priestess. Or if you prefer, ask me your inquiries. I couldn't discern her age. I would be happy to answer. Where's the keeper route? I know she's incredibly suspicious. I just wonder where the keeper route is. Anyway, that's generous of you. I am but a keeper for the gods. At that moment, a townsperson appeared and whispered into the keeper's ear, I'm afraid I'm needed for something. Please, enjoy the rest of the evening. With a polite nod, keeper walked away. Okay, and then we talked to her. Seeing her face could help the question. Did we meet earlier today? You must be confusing me with my sister. We're twins. I see. So desu ka. Are you both priestesses? Yes, but she's taking a break from the role. Okay, that's what this priestess was trying to do. Blah, 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 blah. Got stabbed like 27 times. Or something like that. But let's see. So we have a choice over here. I think, I chose the shrine last time. We met up with Towa. So let's choose a cemetery. I think I said how before, like, why would we visit the cemetery at nighttime? That's just spooky. Let's do it anyway. I went to the cemetery, walking down an empty path. Entering through the gates, I passed the general section to reach the Mikami section and stopped before the family grave. A single girl stood under the moonlight. Hello, detective. What are you doing here so late? I should ask you the same. I was just taking a walk to get a breath of fresh air. Fresh air? At the cemetery? Even if it's the truth, you should make up a better excuse or else people will question you. I'm visiting my family members. She gestured to the Mikami family grave. I looked at the tombstone in silence. Moonlight shined upon the family name engraved. The moon is bright tonight. I see, if that's what you say. She can't see, She walked down the lane of graves, stopping at Mikami Itaha's. I followed. If you were to say that the moon is beautiful tonight, do you think it could be construed as a declaration of love? Is it? Is it kind of like I don't know. I have no idea. What does that mean? Is it like I guess it could be like a romance trope, Isn't the moon beautiful tonight? As you stare into the sky and then you make out. I don't know. Is that how it works? Souseki without context of affection. I don't think it works. I don't know what that means. Is this a Japanese thing? I think this is a Japanese thing that's actually kind of flying over my head. I'm ashamed to be a weeb because I don't understand what this means. I'm not too fond of the moon as an analogy of love. Such a cold thing. A rock that only reflects the light of the sun, unable to produce its own. Such a thing can't be called love. I didn't care for the purported response of, I would die for you either. What do you prefer? When talking about the moon, madness. Moonstruck. Would you use that to describe people who see things that don't exist? Having always seen black strings, I'd long lost track of reality and illusion. What madmen saw could truly exist, but did they understand their own sight? I was no psychiatrist. I only knew enough to live my life undisturbed and address the crimes of people who were unfortunately disturbed. That makes me kind of interested in the main character's backstory, actually. We never really explored that all that much. I don't know if we're getting enough flashbacks about it, but it could be an interesting adventure, actually. About her and her, partner, you know? In this game, you know, she's already dead, but Shoko, right? She sounds like an interesting character. It'd be kind of cool, you know? Solving mysteries together. That could be like its own little story. Yeah. I would use a different term. For example, cursed or blessed. At least for myself. Do you have an interpretation of the moon you like? I wonder. Maybe rebirth. The waxing and waning of the moon always repeats. The moon will always become round, old, and shining. It disappears bit by bit in the darkness to our eyes, turning all to darkness. Yet, as the sliver of white reappears and grows before you know it, the full moon once more hangs in the sky. Isn't it romantic? It's a good motif. Do you write? Not really. Not recently. Too bad humans only have one life. In the end, we all go to the ground. She kicked Mikami Itoha's plot with a hum. No one berated her for her disrespect toward the dead. Moon talk aside, am I in front of the right tombstone? Mikami Itoha's tombstone? I barely asked about the woman, but I got the feeling that gossip had already circulated around town about my interest in Mikami Itoha. The close-knit nature of small towns was dangerous. At least I could get away from a blind girl if I needed to. Yes, Mikami Itoha is dead. You see, that's why she has a grave here. Her body is buried beneath the ground just like everyone else who died in the Mikami family. Are you convinced? No. Why? I never knew Mikami Itoha, but there's still the chance that she could be alive. I'm searching to find what happened to her. I have no good reason, not yet. Okay. This is new to me, so let me just save the game. You know, when I think of the moon, I think of rabbits. You know, I think of the Japanese mythology. Or is it mythology? I don't know. A fable, really, or something. Where, like, rabbits make mochi, you know, on the moon. Anyway, or something like that? Is that how we're... Anyway, I might be mixing it up with, like, a manga I read recently about something similar. Anyway. Alright, you also think so. Regardless of my own flimsy clues to Mikami Itoha's whereabouts, I had a particular feeling about the girl in front of me. You also think so. She also has some sort of grievance with the matter of Mikami Itoha. Okay, so that's... I was actually confused what that meant, but I guess it's implied that she also believes that Mikami Itoha is not dead, or something like that, you know? That's what that means. Perhaps the woman truly was dead, however her death was possibly suspicious. Suspicious, you say? If she wasn't dead, then that in itself was suspicious. Is Mikami Itoha dead? Mikami Itoha is dead. My sight wasn't a lie detector, so I just stared at her without speaking. Then she laughed, a lilt in her voice like bells. She stepped closer to me, placing a hand on my shoulder, and whispered into my ear, her breath tickling against my skin. If you can prove yourself to me, I'll help you out, detective. She smelled sweet, like candy. Like I could eat her right now. I literally chomp on her, and she turns out she's a candy monster. Now, soon enough she backed away to her previous position. But only if you can prove yourself to me. I'll do my best then. She was friendly, at the very least she wouldn't get in the way. That was what she indicated to me, but I couldn't understand why. She was a member of the Mikami family, the family that buried Mikami Itoha and declared her dead with a private funeral and all the associated matters. Could I ask why you're here again? You already have an idea why I'm here, we're that weird. Could I ask why you're here again? You already have an idea why I'm here. I really did come out for a breath of fresh air, but I let her come to her own conclusions. Good question. I don't want to answer. She stepped on Mikami Itoha's grave. She's like, no, I will not answer your questions. Daga kotowaru. Then she yawned. Following her contagious yawn, I let out my own. I suppose it's rather late. You should head off to bed soon. Same to you. Of course. Good night, detective. Sweet dreams. Alright. After returning, we just relax. Alright. I believe this is when she asks us this is when she asks us out on a date. You know? We already had this scene. So this time I'm actually gonna decline because I want to see the other scene actually. You know? Oh, she doesn't mind? No thanks. Sorry. That's alright. And she gave me a delicate wave and left. Goodbye. Because I believe if we don't go on a date with her, then we can interact with Toa this time. We can see what happens over here. Oh, hello, Crescendo, by the way. I missed your comment. Anyway. After my chat with the blindfold girl, I walked to the shrine. Climbing the stairs, I saw the priestess seemingly deep in thought under a tree. Alright, okay, this is the same dialogue, I believe, so let's skip. Alright, and so I think she asked us about... Okay, she asked about the gray strings. Let's say that may be this time. I think I said I'm not sure that before, but that may be. That may be true. What color is the string of hate? Black. Her response confirmed that we saw at least part of the same reality. What's the breadth of human emotion? Will we lose something or gain something if all strings are cut? Nothing will change, but your emotions will become your own. If all the strings are cut, will all humans get along? I don't know. Would you like a world where everyone got along? Repeating the blindfold girl's question to the priestess, I couldn't help but notice how the priestess's expression softened at a topic that made the blindfold girls darken. Yes. Why? Would it be nice? If there could be less sad things in the world, less reasons for people to be hurt. It would be a happier, kinder world if everyone got along. Warmth bubbled over my eyes. Is this the same thing, actually? Oh, this is new, I think. I was wondering, did I see this dialogue before? But no, this is something I didn't see before. I understood the moment that she yearned for a dream. A happy, kind world. A shining and beautiful world that most adults stop believing in. You're a kind person. No. She shook her head. Not at all. I peeked at her eyes, the one that could see strings. I wondered what was reflected in her sight. How did she see humans? Were they merely bodies of lines? There'd be a lot of strings, yes. There'd be strings everywhere. I think there was someone else in the world who could see what I thought of as my madness. I needed a moment to digest my findings. My brain slowing down now that our conversation had come to a lull. Without the another word, she entered the shrine, allowing me to follow her into the building. Okay, we can't just go in this time. You're welcome to follow if you like. Yeah, okay. This time, because last time we said, no thanks for having dinner with your twin sister instead. This time we actually follow her into the shrine, I think. After slipping off our shoes at the entrance, we walked to a room with a shrine altar. The priestess went to a box hidden in the corner of the room to retrieve a matchbox and a candle. Striking a match against the rough side of the box, she made a flame to light the candle. Once lit, the candle was placed in the opening of the shrine altar. The flame flickered, producing a haze before my eyes. Despite the small size of the candle, I blinked and the haze danced. And this happens every time, by the way, we somehow interact with the candles in the shrine. They always say, it's like, what are you talking about, bro? It's just a normal candle, but we always see weird, hallucinations or we get really engrossed in the candle for some reason. Well, this time, let's breathe in the fumes. Don't worry about it. It's totally fine, right? We totally just could breathe in the fumes. I breathed in deeply, a sweet scent filling my nose. The priestess kneeled before the altar and prayed, closing her eyes and placing her hands together in concentration. Then the haze disappeared, and the light ceased to wobble. The priestess returned to her feet. Well, given the beliefs around the stringless god, are you good at making new relationships? No, I'm not very good at making friends. Okay. Would you prefer you have to have lots of friends? She shook her head. Having only a few important people is more fitting for me. I am an introvert. Same. What about you? I like you. I think people should like you easily. What she meant was not the romantic type of like, but my heart still skipped a beat. Probably because she was beautiful that I couldn't help but get a little carried away in an now relaxed atmosphere. Actually, I'm the same as you. I'm fine with only a few important people. I had more clients than friends. People came to me for help and left when they were done. Our relationships were purely transactional. I would be flattered but surprised if I had a lot of positive strings attached to myself. I see. Was she disappointed? By important people, do you mean your sister? Yes. Could you tell me more about her? She is the other priestess. That was it. She didn't seem to want to say more, looking away toward the steady light of the candle. Pondering on whether to ask more about the priestess, I hadn't noticed another person appear in the room until she approached and greeted me. Welcome to the Stringless God's abode. Has our priestess been taking care of you? Yes, she's been very informative. She's always been a very diligent priestess, working hard to maintain the shrine and save those afflicted by strings. One day, her work will be rewarded. The people who she helped, the Stringless God touch, are all grateful. I'm glad she's treated you well. Do you have anything you're curious about? Well, the priestess mentioned something about strings. Colorful strings between people that symbolize emotional connections. I hesitated to call the emotions false. Can you also see the strings? I'm afraid the only humans who can see the strings are the priestesses. Only they can cut the strings that bind humanity. Keeper glanced at my left eye for a second, her own eyes narrowing as if greedy for something. It's their burden. However, we're infinitely grateful to them. The priestess cleared her throat softly. Both Keeper and I turned to look at her, but the priestess shook her head at me, indicating that she wasn't calling my attention. She was just literally clearing her throat. Keeper. Yes? Did you need something? Thank you for the reminder regarding the upcoming dance. They gestured toward me to say they have to talk privately for a bit, and walked away to hold a conversation I could not hear. With not much to do, I wandered around the room. I found nothing notable, no torture devices or suspicious body parts. Only when I looked at the shrine altar, I felt as if someone was gazing at me beyond the candle flame. After some time, I returned to the inn. Alright, okay, so we're over here. I think we were taking a walk at night again. We love our evening strolls, I guess. We see this monster. Yeah, because last time we saw this monster, we did simply like sneak away, I guess. I think that's what happened. This time though, we have the option to run away. I don't know what that means. If we do that, I think the idea is that we're gonna make a lot of noise, and therefore, well, let's see. Let me save the game actually. I was wondering what was different. Run away. Get away, get away, get away. This thing wasn't the same as the black strings. Get away! The thing could kill me! Get away! Even from such a distance, I had to run away. Kicking against the dirt, I started to run. With no direction in mind, I simply dashed to get as far away as possible, ignoring the creaking of my joints. I stumbled, nearly tripping. The sound of the monster was so close, I could almost feel its burning breath against my skin. I ran. And I ran. I ran so far away. I guess where? My body yelling at me to stop. My eyesight flickered as oxygen burned cold through my blood. I kept running. I ran all night and day because I could feel the monster behind me. Bam! I crashed head first into a familiar figure, grabbing until her clothes to stop from falling over. What's wrong? My nails dug into my palms regardless of the fabric I was gripping, but my legs shook so much that I slipped down to my knees. I could hear the monster approaching from behind. My chest felt as if all of my scars had ripped open. Now that I stopped, I couldn't keep going. My tongue wouldn't cooperate to say that there was a monster. Why were you running? With all too human footsteps, the monster approached. As if taunting, he did not run but walked, one leisurely step at a time toward my position. What's wrong? Why were you running? I couldn't process what she was saying. Did you see something? A shadow grew over me. It stretched over Keeper, blocking out the stars. Why do you think nothing was wrong? Drip, drip, drip. My sweat? My tears? The shadow ceased to move. I had nowhere to run. Taking in a raggedy breath, I slowly turned around. A monster. What's wrong? Not... when I read this, not hingis is wrong. What are you... Or nothing is wrong. What are you seeing? There's nothing here at all. Why are you afraid? You should not be. Her voice distorted behind me before becoming crisp and clear in my ear. Shirasagi mana? Okay. That was weird. But, I'm assuming we die? I'm assuming we die from that. You know, I guess the Keeper noticed our ability to see the monsters and maybe she just murdered us, you know? Or like... allowed us to be murdered, I guess, maybe? Anyway, let us walk away this time, and if we do that, the same thing happens. Technically we did choose the one with hidden eyes last time in my first playthrough. Let's choose the one with the golden eyes this time, just to see different dialogue. Ah, you seem surprised. I hastily took a look behind me, finding nothing but trees. I was a little spooked by something while out on the walk here. Following my movement, the priestess looked past my shoulder, but from her lack of response, she appeared to also see nothing odd. What are you doing here at this time of night? I'd like taking walks here too. This is a nice place. It's quiet and lets me clear my thoughts. I couldn't parse if she was subtly telling me to shut up and go away. You seem troubled. I don't know why you're so interested in that woman, but Mikami Ito is our older sister. She was in her teens when we were born, so we were never particularly close. What's your father's name? Yet again, by the way, we're just ignoring the monster. Like, nah, the monster disappeared out, don't worry about it. Just gonna have a casual conversation. What's your father's name? Mikami Yasunobu. If this information keeps you out of trouble, I'm happy to provide it. That was kind of her. Thank you. I also want to stay out of trouble. That's good. With the conversation perceived as finished, the priestess made to continue her stroll down the forest path. Over that way was a monster. Wait, you shouldn't go in that direction. Why? I couldn't say that there was a monster. I didn't even know the monster was real. I think I saw a large animal. I see. Thank you. You should also head back to your inn then. I should. Alright, and then we just leave. Alright, so we're back here. I believe this is when Shiki and Toa are arguing, I guess. Detective. Both of their faces turned toward me, swiveling in such unison that I nearly lost my balance. And they really are twins. The priestess's grip on her sister loosened, allowing the blindfold girl to free her hand with a sharp shake. The blindfold girl then dashed toward me. She slipped behind me, tugging out my jacket sleeve, and placed me as a shield between her and her sister. Walking towards us, the priestess's shoulders deflated. If her eyes met mine, I felt the grip of my sleeve strengthen, my arm pulled back with a jerk. At that movement, the priestess seemed to stare through my body. Her sister fidgeted behind my back, although while not letting go of my sleeve. Unable to form the correct words, the priestess shook her head and looked down to the ground. I have to get ready. She left. Whatever she wanted to say left unsaid. Once the priestess entered the shrine building, the blindfold girl finally let go of my sleeve and circled around me to the front. Okay, so this is different. Last time, when they argued, the blindfold girl just simply, ran away. Shiki just ran away. We didn't really see her for the rest of the rally. We kind of just talked to Toa, the entire time. That kind of led us down to Toa's path. But this time, I think we could have more screen time with Shiki. Thank you, detective. She didn't seem to want to talk about her sister and switched gears immediately. Coming here to watch? Yes. Keep her inviting me. She mentioned that a purification ritual was taking place today. Maybe you'll find something interesting. These things you do have to see, or these things you do have to see to... Or, I keep reading that weird. These things you do have to see to understand. Purification, the cutting of the last string. Her voice dropped off. Then, as if nothing had happened, she made a motion that caused her skirt to twirl and let out a soft laugh like a bell. You're a diligent detective. I like it. My heart skipped a beat. Was I really that weak to praise? Now was as good of a time to ask as any. What's your name? Shiki. Just call me Shiki. Shiki? Mm-hmm. Before long, people began to gather. Shiki slipped away. Keeper appeared at the front to make some announcements, giving a reminder about the upcoming thread-cutting sword dance. Okay, is this the same? Yeah, it's the same. Woo! And then, what was this? Cut? Huh. I guess this is during the ritual. Sometimes I'm losing context by skipping, but I'm skipping stuff that I've already seen. But we're getting a voice from the Shiki. Detective? I felt a pair of delicate hands atop my shoulders shaking me. My vision gradually cleared. Shiki. She was very, very close, right in my face. I could smell her pleasant shampoo as her hair tickled against my cheeks. Rapidly blinking, I backed away to regain my sense of space, only to lightly bump my head against the rough bark. Yeah, I guess this is during the purification ritual, when the string was cut from like a townsperson, and then, I guess the main character was like, kind of like getting like a headache or something, But this time Shiki is here. Once my hand touched the structure I leaned against, I remembered I was under a tree. From the sounds beyond us, it seemed the gathering had entered the socializing phase already. Maybe it was already closing up. You're still alive. How much time had passed? What was I doing again? What's wrong? Realizing that her nose was nearly touching mine, she backed away with a hop. You weren't moving for a while. Stepping side to side for a moment, long hair swaying, she cocked her head to the side. She seemed to have made a decision. Then, gesturing with a mock bow, as if welcoming me into a secret, she whispered a name. Mikami Itaha. Her whisper was so quiet it did not reach my ears. However, I could read her lips as she enunciated clearly the syllables of my target's name. Is that how you pronounce enunciated, actually? I thought it was with an E. For the longest time, I thought it was an E, not an A. I don't know, actually. I have no idea. Is it like a different word? I think it's enunciate, right? Enunciated? Enunciated? It's like, like pronouncing, Anyway. I'll help you with your investigations, that woman. Speaking lowly, speaking slowly, she became my comrade in this case. The ceremony dance is in 3 days. Most people attend even if they don't come to the regular meetings. It's a good chance to go to places without others noticing. She leaned in close, breath tickling against my ear. ASMR. And she'd been wondering about her grave. Reaching on her hand, she tugged in my jacket sleeve and began to lead me away from the shrine. As we walked down the shrine stairs, the sound of the gathering faded into the distance. So, let's dig it up. Okay, grave robbing? I was wondering if we're gonna grave rob in this game. What? Let's dig up Mikami Itoha's grave. I blinked once, twice. Shiki didn't change her expression or laugh with that tinkle in her voice to say she was joking. Certainly, I had questioned to myself the presence of the body. The grave was stringless. I could not ascertain whether or not Mikami Itoha was buried as claimed. If we could uncover the body, then my question could be answered. The land's owned by the Mikami family, so you won't get in trouble. For all that matters, I'm the one digging up my so-called older sister's grave. Is that just because you're related? Does that mean you're allowed to, dig up a grave? What's that called actually? It's called exhuming, I think. I mean, in some cases you are allowed, but you gotta get like permission. You gotta get like a legal thing or whatever to like dig up a grave. However, this was a bit extreme. Why would she want to? The thread-cutting sword dance always is performed in the evening to emphasize light in the darkness. That means the visibility will be poorer because of darkness. Poorer for both of us and anyone who might see. Well, it depends on if the moon is bright or not, but we shouldn't have any problems identifying where to dig. I'll provide the shovel for digging. The grave is less than a meter deep. I've moistened the soil, so it shouldn't be terribly hard. You just grab like a bucket of water and dumped it on the grave already. She thought a lot about this. Won't you help me, detective? Don't you want to solve the case? What is Mikami Itaha? The photo I had of Shoko and my target burned in my inner pocket. Were they happy back then? Was Mikami Itaha so important to Shoko? I didn't know anything but the present where Shoko was dead despite longing for that woman. I decided to trust Shiki. I look forward to working with you. Gazing into the strip of black cloth that covered her eyes, I asked a question that only a priestess could answer. My eyes weren't enough. I could only see the black strings. Does Mikami Itoha's grave have strings? She paused. No. It doesn't have strings. That woman never had strings. From the earliest moment I can remember, she didn't have strings. I used to be a priestess. I have absolutely no interest anymore, so don't call me a priestess. It's rotten, the stringless god. Rather than cutting strings, I would rather tie them together. I'm sure my sister has explained it. She gave me the general gist. In order for humans to reach true freedom, the strings must be cut, which is the blessing of the stringless god. I didn't buy it. Strings are the relationships between people, hatred and disgust, love and yearning, everything you could think of. My sister, oops, that's her saying that. I keep saying, not that it matters too much because the voices that I do aren't all that different, but like, I read that in the protagonist's voice. But technically, it's her saying that. It's like, strings are the relationships between people, hatred and disgust, love and yearning, everything you could ever think of. My sister and I can see the strings of the world. We can see all of them in every color. We are born with eyes like that, and bodies with the power to touch and cut these strings that to most people don't exist. The Mikami family has always been deeply intertwined with the stringless god's following. We became priestesses and engaged in cutting, purging the false lines, yet we can only see the strings, and we believe in the stringless god's sayings blindly. Even if it's freedom to have them cut, they're just how the world works, so aren't they simply human relationships? Even if what we see, what we have are only fake emotions. I suppose I can't quite see anymore. She gestured over her hidden eyes. What do you see, detective? What do you mean? Her fingers ran through the air until they touched the black string. After running her index finger along it, she grabbed it and yanked, sending vibrations along the thin darkness. Don't play dumb. Without a doubt, she had figured me out. I see them too. My sight is much more limited than yours, but I've always been able to see the strings as well. They're black and I've never been able to touch them. The black strings of hate. I hadn't told anyone about what I could see since childhood. I hadn't even told Shoko, my mentor, my partner, my friend. Shiki nodded, taking in my words. Do you think that this world is beautiful? Beautiful? I saw a world crisscrossed with darkness. Realizing that I had lost my only companion of Shoko's departure, I wondered. I think it should be. If this world wasn't beautiful, I would be sad. Do you think that this world is beautiful, Shiki? I don't know. But I'm glad you see the world through such a kind lens. I'm just a private investigator. Anyways, how should I contact you? Would you prefer to exchange phone numbers or Line? You know? Lime, as in line, I guess. A popular messaging app or in Japan, anyway. I took out my cell phone, tapping over my contacts in that green messaging app. What's the popular messaging app that's like in North America or like, you know, just outside Japan? What was it called? I totally forgot. I just remember like a coworker mentioned it, you know, and then they said I was like weird for not having it, I guess. What's it called? No, that's nothing. I was gonna say like my chat. I don't know. Anyway, I can't remember. Anyway, I don't know. I don't remember. You know, but there's like an app out there that's kind of like similar, I guess. The non-Japanese equivalent, I guess. Like, I'm assuming North American, but I don't know if it's exclusive to North America. Anyway, I just use like the default text app, you know, on my cell phone. I don't use any kind of like extra apps, I guess. I don't have a phone. Let's keep in touch in person instead. Oh, she doesn't have a phone. I guess. Well, it makes sense. Because you can't see. I don't know. Is there like accessibility options? I mean, you can make the phone like text to speech. That's like a thing. Imagine it'd be kind of hard to use. Anyway. Meet me at the cemetery tomorrow morning, okay? I tucked my phone back into my pocket. What time? 10 in the morning. Sure. Nodding in my agreement, she gave me a little wave. See you tomorrow, detective. See you. The rest of the day passed without anything of note. Once I crawled to bed, I fell asleep quickly as usual. Then I began to dream again. Yes. Is this the same, by the way? It's not. I can't skip it. Let's see. I returned to the city of Teto. Unlike usual, strings of all colors ran from edge to edge of my vision, but no people were around. I walked, turning my head back and forth to find the origin of the strings. Then I got stabbed. I recognized the presence. Ow. Stab. I actually hurt even though this was a dream. Another version of the same old dream. Stab. My vision flickered. Like a light going out on a thin candle, the dream ended. I bolted up in the futon, throwing the covers to the side, and hurriedly grasped my chest, the place that still hurt as it had cracked open. A Upon sticking my hand through the gap in my pajamas, I touched my skin and found only the roughness of scars, but none of the wetness of blood. You know, this is not the equivalent, but sometimes I do think that, like when, sometimes I think I wet the bed, so I don't know. Sometimes when you wake up, like you had like a dream or something, and then you wake up and you think you wet the bed or something, but I mean, 99% of the time I don't. Let's just say, anyway. It's just sweat for the most part. Anyway. Mostly was the sweat from my own palms. Feeling the sunlight filter into my room, I noticed that it was morning. In spite of the tumultuous nature of that sleep cycle, I somehow managed to sleep the whole night. All I'm saying is the 1% is like very, very rare. Anyway. That was rare. I stumbled to my feet, grabbed my phone from where it was charging to check the time. In fact, I had overslept. Proudly ignoring my poor appearance in the mirror, I went through a morning routine not for mentioning went to the cemetery. Good morning, detective. Somehow I feel a little sorry that you spent so much time in the cemetery. I did come here on vacation. Really? At least partially, a kind of trip for recuperation. A forced break from my career due to health reasons, which gave me the chance to come here. Where'd my vacation go again? Well, this is not a vacation visual novel, okay? Had you heard of the Healing Hot Springs? Are they really that famous? I was under the assumption that every place tacked on something like that to their advertisements. Maybe. A sickly detective here to enjoy the Healing Hot Springs, only to find yourself entangled in the mystery of a dead woman. Something like that? Close enough. Sickly, huh? I was in the hospital for a long time this year. I was assaulted in the streets by someone, and it didn't end nicely. For me, I mean. A coma for a few weeks followed by months of physical therapy. Before you know it, a year's gone by, but the aftermath doesn't just go away. It's probably what you might call being forced to take a break. Does that have something to do with Mikami Itaha? The person who attacked me is from this town, but as far as I can tell, he has nothing to do with Mikami Itaha. At the very least, my reasons for investigating her have nothing to do with him. I mentioned before that I'm doing this all for someone I care about, but I didn't tell you anything about her. I had a partner as a private investigator. She was my mentor and friend, a very important person to me. Her name was Shoko. She passed away, almost 2 years ago. She was the one who cared about Mikami Itaha. I never met the woman in my life, but for Shoko, Mikami Itaha was the person she loved? Oh, so she was. Someone she couldn't forget even after leaving this town, even though Shoko stayed in the city with me and never returned here. According to her, Mikami Itaha went missing 5 years ago. She told me that her biggest regret was not finding out what happened. I remember sitting in the chair next to her hospital bed, holding her hand that had become so weak. She had laughed, that low laugh that made her throat vibrate in a funny way, and reassured me that she'd be alright. We still had more cases to take on after all. But even she didn't believe her own words. How old was Shoko actually? I'm just thinking like she wasn't that old. I think. But did we ever learn why she died actually? I don't remember. Maybe it was explained before, but I don't remember basically. I don't know if she died from natural causes, if she was like old, but she didn't sound, Shoko didn't seem so old to me. The way she was described. I think it was said like she was only a few years older than the main character, but I don't know. Anyway. But even she didn't believe her own words. She lamented at that time in that place filled with sterile white. If only she could have met Itaha again. He never did take on that case. One day I'll die. If I die, then no one can resolve her regret. So I have to try at least a little bit and tell her what happened. Even if I can't find out the entire truth. Suddenly, warmth wrapped around my fingers. Shiki took my hand and squeezed reassuringly. You can do it, detective. Then she loosened her grip and let go of my hand, pausing in silence for a moment. To think that even Mikami Itaha had someone who cared about her. Was she that unlikable? No. There wasn't enough to dislike. She rarely interacted with other people, only talking to her father and Keeper. Even then, she seemed to only talk to Keeper. Well, what were we? Shiki shook her head. Yorokobe can never have Mikami Itoha back. No matter what you find, Mikami Itoha as a human being will already be dead. You see, humans only die once. What do you mean? The Mikami family held a private funeral for her. Sounds like we might have just fabricated her death, right? Doctors can in fact be bribed. But we didn't bribe anyone. As someone who was at that funeral, I can say without a doubt that she died. The body never became rigid or began to rot during that time, but she died. As if Sleeping Beauty, she was still. The heart stopped her breathing. It wasn't for such a short period of time that you able to zap her and revive her with a defibrillator. It was long enough that her body became ice cold, long enough for brain death. That means she should be dead. Let me clarify the question you should ask. It's not whether or not Mikami Itoha died. It's whether or not she's dead, whether or not she's missing. You're saying that you think that she's some sort of monster. Yep. And that's why all we have to do is dig up the corpse. If it's buried down there, then I'll help you with the information on her death. If it's not buried down there, then you're gonna need to help me. I did watch her coffin get lowered in myself, but it was before this happened. She made a slashing gesture of her hand over her eyes. Before this happened, as in apparently her eyes got slashed. You see, Mikami Itoha is the Holy Maiden. Keeper called her that. What does that mean? I don't know. All I ever did was cut strings, detective. The priestesses, they aren't actually that important. Not as precious as the stringless god's maiden, but never so important. After the conversation in the cemetery, we parted for lunch and regrouped at the shrine. Okay. We didn't start digging. I guess we had to start digging at night. I was thinking we'd start digging now, but it'll be in broad daylight, I guess. Can't do that. To my surprise, a number of townspeople had gathered. Counting against the group from the past two gatherings, I found less people here. There's less people here than usual. It's Purification Day. Shiki pointed to one person. The woman was stringless to me, unnerving, without a line of darkness connecting to her body. However, as Shiki now singled the woman out, I wouldn't have noticed. Other people's black strings passed before and behind her body. Let's go inside. Noticing me wandering toward the audience, Shiki tugged on my sleeve. We went to the door of the shrine and entered, walking through a hallway to a room with a shrine altar, as well as the priestess. Shiki, and you know that the purification is happening right now. I can't delay. I can wait. I'll talk to you after this. The priestess hurriedly walked out of the room. It usually doesn't take very long, at least not long enough to have a sensitive conversation. She leaned in and whispered, If you have a chance, you should take a look around. You're good at this. Good at what, detective? We waited a while. Just as Shiki mentioned, the priestess returned soon enough. The two of them exited the room to the hallway, their footsteps eventually fading into the distance as they left to have a private conversation. I wandered around the room and found nothing out of place. What's the point of lighting a candle during the day? I mean, usually it's for, religious reasons. As I squatted from the shrine altar where a lit candle was placed, I heard footsteps followed by the door opening. I stood back up. A townsperson, the one without black strings, entered the room silently. A candle flickered. Hello? The person didn't respond. Then, the air warped. Alright, and she collapsed. I think this is how it happened before. Yeah, I think this happened already. This is when she turns to a monster, I guess. But yeah, well, technically it's new, so I guess I should read it. But yeah. I don't know, every time I scroll back to that sentence, it's just a thud. Anyway, she collapsed with a thud, face smashing the ground in ways someone fainting wouldn't, had a crackle and sound of cartilage. Nani? I hurried over to check whether she was alright, crouching next to her, but my worry increasing by the second as she failed to make any moans or groans. Rolling her body lower to lay her flat on her back, I checked for the pulse and breathing. Neither was present. Is this a heart attack or a stroke of some sort? Nitroglycerin. Ignoring the part of my mind that was panicking over the woman dead or dying, I reached into my pocket to get my phone. The best course of action was to call emergency services. I stumbled back, falling on my butt. fingers scraping against the floor as I shakily backed away. I felt nausea build up in my throat, buzzing filled my ears. For a fraction of a second, I saw an angel. And something began to change about the woman prone on the floor. Her body twitched, convulsing at the chest once, twice, then thrice. Okay. It's the same though. I think I've seen this already. But the tiny darts broke through her flesh, tearing out the creature upon her tiny soft leg. It was catching a monster. Whee! And this is where she activates her stand. She's an enemy stand user. Hono power. Now, Drippy Dart's carved on her eggs was born. All went black. Alright. When I opened my eyes, I saw Shiki. My head rested on her lap. The sweetness of her shampoo tickled my nose as she leaned over me for a moment, causing me to shift. Hello, detective. Are you prone to fainting? I rolled off, getting up with wobbly legs. No, it's not normal. What happened? A dull pain throbbed in my temples as images began filtering back into my mind from before I lost consciousness. The purified person. Is she alright? What happened to her? She's fine. Nothing happened. You collapsed in the shrine room. Did you hit your head? No. She fell over and stopped breathing. I was gonna call 119 and then... It's funny how, like... No, 119, I mean, I'm assuming that's the emergency, service number in Japan. It's kind of like just the opposite of 911, North America. Is that just a coincidence, or I don't know? Yeah. My breath hitched in my throat. Are you sure? Nothing happened. There's no way, I saw it happen. I just talked to her keeper and my sister. She's fine. There's no way. I blinked slowly at Shiki as the fragmented memories of the darkness bursting from a human body sharpened. Even though she turned to a monster? My hand shook. Detective, are you alright? Okay. Save the game. Let's insist that there's monsters. There's totally monsters, Shiki. Can't you see? Oh, wait, you can't see, but... I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. I know he swapped those numbers. 1 year before the Magna Carta. No, I'm not crazy. Even if she didn't turn into a monster, she clearly collapsed. She wasn't breathing and her heart stopped. She cracked her nose while falling down. I saw when I rode her into her back. I'm sorry, detective, but are you sure you didn't hit your head? Sorry. It was fine. I didn't need her to believe me. We stood around for a little longer without speaking. Like a fleeting nightmare, the image of the monster became blurry in my head. Then my stomach growled. Don't worry about it. The monster, I'm hungry. We went out for dinner together and started back home. She accompanied me all the way to the entrance of the inn. As I put my head in the door, I turned to Shiki, who still hadn't left. You aren't going home? Could I stay the night with you? She tugged at my sleeve. I'm alright with it, but I don't know if we can trouble the innkeeper for that. I mean, aren't they isn't the Mikami family the most, important family in the entire town? So I don't think it matters. We entered the inn together, perhaps an unexpected sight for the innkeeper who came to greet us. Welcome back. Oh my. Good evening. With magic on her tongue, she explained her request and after a few exchanges and nods, received the innkeeper's approval. You are certainly welcome to stay while she's here. I'm glad you two have become friends. You remind me of Shoko and Itoha. Thank you. Let me lead you to the room. The innkeeper led the two of us to my room and quickly adjusted it for two people before bowing out the door. Please enjoy and let me know if there are any problems. The sound of the door closing, we were alone again. That actually kind of reminds me, the innkeeper. Now, remember how the innkeeper only had a few strings? Maybe only even one. And Mana was thinking that is because the innkeeper was very well liked, right? But actually, considering the cult, in this town, actually, it's more so, or more likely, her strings got cut, maybe? At least most of her strings? Oh, she hasn't been turned to a monster yet, so I'm not sure. Maybe or maybe not. Because usually when your strings get cut, then you have only one string left, and your purification day, is soon, and so you cut the last string, you turn into a monster, right? Is the idea anyway, but, well, I don't know. Shiki made herself comfortable on the tatami, running her hands along the ground. What's her family like? It's not very interesting. I'm an only child. My father was a very career-oriented man, and my mother was his housewife. I don't think they initially planned to have children. I don't get along too well with my parents. We aren't in contact. Both parents or grandparents died before I was born, so I never met them. There aren't any aunts or uncles involved either, so I'd say I mostly live by myself. My family was myself. What are your parents like? My father was a businessman and had a shrine. He was probably old enough to be my grandfather, so it was strange to see other people's parents so much younger than him. Well, actually, we know why, according to, Towa's route. But, my mother, I don't know. Keeper is a lot like one. Controlling people, controlling finances, and giving love to make people do things. Okay, that's a weird way to say that. I have a lot of dead people in my immediate family, but it doesn't really matter because only my sister matters. After lounging under the tatami for a while longer, we went to shower separately. One thing led to another, and I found myself entering the hot springs with Shiki. Even though she couldn't see, as soon as I entered the water, I submerged myself up to my shoulders. And why the rush to get in the water? She walked toward the pool, dipping a foot into the water. Seeing her naked ankle, I quickly looked away. Lewd, naked ankle. Heat rising to my ears, not from just the hot springs. Moving closer to me after getting to the hot springs, she let out a sigh of content. Then she cupped her hands in the water and squished her palms together as a squirt of water flew into the air. Oh, I missed, didn't I? Isn't that like danger? I know, like, it's supposed to be like funny and silly, right? They're like, she's squirting water, but isn't the hot springs like really hot? Maybe it's not like so hot that like burns your skin, because that defeats the whole purpose. It's not supposed to like burn your skin, but like if you get in your eyes, I don't know. Like it can hurt a lot. Anyway, yes, a nervousness I hadn't noticed instantly flew away. Instead of trying again with a two-handed water gun, she directly paddled the water at me, making little waves that lapped against my arm. We definitely couldn't do this in a public bath. I retaliated, splashing water at her as well. Wouldn't that get her like a blindfold wet or whatever? And I actually took out her blindfold? I'm not sure. I assume she would, right? You've just declared war at me, detective. Take this. She swept her hands under the water and sent a big wave my way. Ha ha ha, hee hee hee. Isn't this fun? Splashing water. They're like 10 years old. I like the sound of her laughter very much. After we finished playing, she put her arms against the stones and let her hair flow in the water above her back. I also leaned back against the stones, melting like jelly. Why'd you become a private investigator? Why? Being able to see black strings made it a convenient choice. It gives me an edge over other people for crimes of hate-based motives. That sounds stressful. Shoko made it work. I guess I was also inspired by her to become a private investigator. Shoko's really important, huh? How'd you meet her? It's a long story. I have time right now. I gave Shiki a summary of the time I was in high school. At that time, I happened to meet Shoko at a crime scene where she introduced herself as a private investigator. A bit of a loner, I was dealing with a stalker problem and had no friends to go to. I couldn't figure it out myself and the police weren't able to help, so I went to her. Snap, and just like that she solved the case by killing the stalker. She simply murdered the stalker. Now, after that, I poked my nose into the private investigator business of hers and joined the office. I wish I could meet you from back then. I was a broody teenager. Is there a career you're chasing after? She rolled around in the water. A career? I suppose I've been thinking about the future these days, because I'm filthy stinking rich. I don't need a career. I can just have lots of money. I wanted to become a novelist. What genre? Maybe something science fiction. Science fantasy? The genre's not that important. I didn't need it to sell, so whether or not it was well defined in genre terms or marketable wasn't on my mind. I just like writing. My next novel will be an isekai. No, did you want to self-publish? Money always finds a way. Towa said she would draw for her books. A book on the bookshelves, a colorful cover, our names together, Shiki and Towa. Work that's just ours for us and no one else. We didn't really have many criteria, only that has to have a happy ending. No matter how much the characters struggled or cried, they had to have a happy ending. You know, I actually don't, me personally, I actually don't like happy endings, but anyway. That's just me, though. I used to think about that a lot. Toa? Toa is the name of my sister. Yes, we didn't mention that in this timeline, so we didn't know. Isn't it a good name? It is. I also thought that Shiki was a good name. I don't think we'll ever make that book, though. She doesn't draw anymore either. And you really love your sister. Of course. She splashed a little water at me. Rubbing her fingers together, she seemed to notice something, so I copied her action. We'd been in the water for long enough that her skin began to wrinkle. Officially pruning and turned to noodles, we exited the hot springs. After drying our hair with a hairdryer, we slipped into the futons that had laid right next to each other by the innkeeper. Good night, Shiki. Good night. I didn't dream, and I slept terribly comfortably. It was warm. Well, the next day, we headed out to the park. Just as we were about to take a seat, the priestess cut between me and Shiki. Did we not? Yeah, we didn't dig that grave, by the way. I guess we're still, I don't know. I guess we're still thinking about that. We didn't end up digging up that grave, I feel. I'm still thinking about the grave digging, okay? You. What do you intend to do to my sister? What do you mean? She didn't come home last night. What happened? Did you two make out? Or whatever? Toa, stop. Shiki took Toa's arm. Stepping a few meters away, they had an argument about the stringless god in hushed whispers. I suddenly noticed a pair of new strings attached to Toa. One was to me, a moderate black of resentment. One was to Shiki, faint and thin. Oh, really interesting. Upon leaving, I mentioned one to Shiki. Yeah, okay, so we can we can describe what string that she has, one involving her, which is kind of brutal, actually, to say that your own sister, or rather her own sister hates her. This whole time they had a good relationship. They argue a few times, but the idea is that they still love each other, right? Because they're family. To tell that to her is kind of isn't that revealing a lot, I don't know. I guess. Alright. I guess. Well, to be safe, I guess I'd just say, Toa kind of hates me. That's safe to reveal, right? Resentment against me. Your sister seems to hate me a little. She touched the string as if feeling out the thickness, letting it go once down. No, this extent is harmless. My sister doesn't hurt people. After playing an uncomfortable question, she paused. Do you want me to cut it? No thanks. Tomorrow's a dance, isn't it? According to plans, we would dig up Mikami Ita's grave on the night of the thread-cutting sword dance when everyone's occupied. Okay, I think they probably said that multiple times. I just misunderstood when exactly we're digging up the grave. Okay, we're waiting until she actually does the ritual or whatever. She nodded before leaning close to my ear to whisper. Still out of the digging? You better not back out now. You better commit. Yes. Have you prepared? Of course. Will you be able to keep watch? Strings ping off of inanimate objects and come out through people. I have somewhat of a sense of my surroundings. Anything else I keep my ears open for. All you need to do is dig. I felt my upper arms. I really wasn't strong at all, and considering my stamina, I wasn't sure how quickly we'd be able to reach the coffin. What sort of Mikami Ita would we find buried? I will look forward to seeing our results. What a strange thing to say, looking forward to digging a grave. I felt a bit of regret that I would miss out on the ceremony dance. What's the dance like? It's a sword dance that makes the strings sing. I'm sorry that you missed my sister performing, but don't worry about it, I already did in her route, actually, or her CG. I'll show you, detective. She stepped back and twirled around before starting to dance for me. Imitating holding a sword, she swept her arm to the side and flew around an imaginary stage. An invisible blade cut through invisible strings. My heartbeat quickened. I seemed to see the air ripple and shine, sparkling with light of infinite colors. Light favored her. It followed her movements as she cut in, not in a violent movement, but a smooth and delicate one. She was shining. If the world could be cruel to such a beautiful girl, then this world was wrong. After an ephemeral sequence, Shiki slowed her movements. Lowering the invisible blade, she opened her palm as if handing it off and stopped. She walked closer to me once more. The can't say the word. Choreography that I always known is for two people. It'll become just for one from now on. Clap, clap, clap. I applaud her performance just for me. You're beautiful. Thank you. Clap, clap, clap. The sound of another pair of hands clapping also came footsteps. Oh, someone else is clapping. Wonderful dance. I'm happy to see that you two are getting along so well. Hello, Keeper. Shiki lowered her voice and gripped her hands tightly at her sides. Your sister appeared upset when I passed her earlier today. Did you two have an argument? It's just a normal sibling squabble. You don't need to worry about it. I see. It would be good if you could make up before the ceremony. It wouldn't do to dampen the light of the great barrier to the stringless god, lest we are unable to reach. Thank you for the advice. Then Keeper turned toward me. I'm glad you were able to make it to a few of our gatherings. How did you find them? And do you have anything you'd like to ask me? Yes, do you know anything about the monsters? No. They were very educational. Could I ask about the priestesses? Specifically, why are they priestesses? Is it to do with the Mikami family? The Mikami family is the family of the shrine. That in of itself does not define the role of a priestess of the stringless god. A priestess is someone who can see, and Mikami blood is not required. A true priestess like a current priestess is capable of more. They can cut with their will because their birth was blessed by the stringless god. The strings that bind humanity are but fragile strings to them. Normal humans, even given the ability to see, need a special apparatus. Like what? A blessed sword. I tried to imagine what such a sword would look like. Before coming to this town, I had truly believed that there could be no such thing sharp enough to cut the strings between people, my untouchable black strings. Don't you have to prepare a keeper? I'm lucky to have the support of many other believers of the stringless god in this town. We have no worries about preparations at the moment. Again, I'd like to invite our guests to the ceremony tomorrow. However, if I'm interrupting your conversation, I'm happy to leave you to talk for now. I'm sure we'll have a chance to speak another time. For example, at the time of salvation. Okay. Keeper bowed. Keeper bowed and left. The rest of the day passed by as did the night.